Welcome to No Human Left Behind, AI the podcast. In today's episode, a conversation on explainable AI and understanding and interpreting artificial intelligence.
All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to get into something that, might sound a little intimidating at first. Explainable AI, or as the cool kids call it, XAI.
Catchy.
Yeah, very catchy. But don't worry, we'll work it all down for you today. We're actually using excerpts from a really cool course called Introduction to Artificial Intelligence.
Specifically, Lesson 13, all about XAI.
Exactly. And the goal here is to, not just tell you what AI decides, but help you actually understand why it makes those decisions. Kind of like peeking behind the curtain, right? Getting into that black box everyone talks about.
Definitely. It's about lifting the hood and seeing what's going on inside these increasingly complex systems. Especially as AI starts impacting, well, pretty much every aspect of our lives, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking like healthcare, finance, even self-driving cars, the whole 9 yards.
All making big decisions that affect us. So it's one thing to know that, say, AI helped diagnose an illness or approved a loan.
But wouldn't you want to know how it actually got to that conclusion? Like, what was the thought process?
Absolutely. And the tricky thing is that some of the most powerful AI out there, particularly deep learning, gets super complicated really fast.
Yeah, the course material actually uses this analogy of deep neural networks being like massive marble mazes, with billions of different pathways.
And trying to figure out the exact path that the AI took to reach its decision, well, it can feel impossible sometimes.
So how do we even begin to unravel that?
That's the core of the black box problem, right? These AI models can have millions or even billions of these little parameters all interacting in these super intricate ways. And sometimes even the experts who build them can't fully explain every single decision the AI makes.
So, okay, even if the AI is getting incredible results, we might not always understand exactly how it's doing it.
That's the challenge. And that's precisely why this whole field of XAI is becoming so important.
It's like, yeah, you can blindly follow the GPS directions, but it's a lot more reassuring to actually look at the map and understand the route, right?
Exactly. When we understand the why, we start to build trust, especially when it comes to, like you said, these really important decisions in healthcare, finance, all those areas that have a big impact.
So it's about more than just knowing the answer. It's about understanding the reasoning behind it.
You got it. And XAI doesn't stop at trust. It also gives us a way to hold AI accountable.
Oh, right. If the AI makes a mistake, XAI can help us understand where things went wrong.
Exactly. We can learn from those mistakes and hopefully prevent them in the future. It's like having a digital paper trail for the AI's thinking.
I like that. A digital paper trail. So XAI is all about transparency then?
Transparency, accountability, and trust. Those are the biggies. Plus, there are more and more regulations popping up around AI. Like GDPR already requires some level of explainability.
Oh, right. So this isn't just like a nice to have. It's becoming essential from a legal standpoint, too.
Absolutely. And, we've got to address the elephant in the room here. There's this talk about a trade-off between accuracy and explainability.
Yeah, the course material mentions that too. So are we basically sacrificing accuracy to get more insight into the AI's decision-making?
Well, it could be a balancing act sometimes.
Yeah.
The simplest AI models, they're usually easy to understand, but they might not be as accurate as the more complex ones.
So it's like the more powerful the AI, the harder it is to explain.
It's a common challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And finding that sweet spot, that balance, is one of the big questions in the world of XAI.
So how do we even approach finding that balance then? Like, what are the factors we should be considering?
It really depends on the specific situation, right? Like, think about healthcare or finance. In those fields, the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah, you want to be extra careful about those decisions.
Absolutely. So in those cases, we might actually prioritize explainability, even if it means sacrificing a tiny bit of accuracy.
That makes sense. You'd rather have a clear explanation for why the AI recommends a certain treatment plan or denies a loan than just a blind answer.
Right. But in other areas, like, say, image recognition for self-driving cars, accuracy might be the top priority for obvious reasons.
Yeah, those split-second decisions have to be right, even if we don't fully grasp every nuance of the AI's reasoning.
Exactly. So the context really matters when we're deciding how much explainability we need. But that brings us to another big question. How do we actually get those explanations in the first place? Are we reading the AI's mind or something?
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like a magic trick.
Right. But it's more like having specialized tools and techniques that allow us to peek inside that black box. And the course highlights some of the leading approaches here, both for general AI and specifically for deep learning.
Right. I remember reading about that. There are two main categories: model agnostic and model specific techniques.
You got it.
Maybe we should start with the model agnostic ones, like the universal tools, because I know the course mentions Lime and Ache.
Yeah, those are two big ones. And what's cool about model agnostic methods is that they work on a whole bunch of different AI models, no matter how they're designed.
Okay, so it's like a universal translator for AI.
In a way, yeah. So LIME, which stands for Local Interpretable Model Agnostic Explanations, that one focuses on explaining individual decisions.
So instead of trying to understand the AI's entire brain, we're zooming in on a specific choice.
Precisely. So let's say an AI flags a financial transaction as potentially fraudulent. LIME could help investigators understand why. By highlighting the specific factors that triggered that alert, like was it an unusual amount, weird location? It's all about making that specific decision clear.
So it's like getting a personalized explanation for that one decision.
Exactly. Now, SAHP, which stands for Shapley Additive Explanations, takes a slightly different approach.
Okay, how so?
Think of it like assigning credit to the different factors that contributed to the decision.
Oh, interesting. So if an AI approves a loan application, SHP could break down how much each factor played a role, like credit score, income, all that stuff.
Exactly. It uses game theory to actually quantify the impact of each piece of data. Helps us understand the logic behind the decision, so to speak.
So with Lime, we get a focused explanation for one decision, and with SHP, we get a breakdown of the factors behind it.
That's a great way to put it. And the best part, both of these methods work on all sorts of AI models. They're super versatile.
That's awesome. It sounds like we're making some real progress in demystifying AI with these tools. But what about those model-specific techniques? Like, what do we use for understanding the really complex stuff, those deep learning models?
Yeah. Well, sometimes you need, more specialized tools for the job.
Makes sense. Like, you wouldn't use a hammer to fix a leaky faucet.
Exactly. And model-specific techniques are, well, they're designed to delve into the nitty-gritty of those particular AI models, especially as those deep neural networks we talked about earlier.
So it's like having different lenses to get a clearer view of what's going on inside.
Precisely. And one of the most common approaches uses visualization, actually creating images that highlight what features the AI is focusing on.
Oh, wow. So we could actually see what the AI is paying attention to.
Exactly. Like, imagine an AI analyzing medical images. Visualization techniques could generate like a heat map showing which parts of the image are most important to the AI's diagnosis.
That's incredible. So doctors could actually see what the AI is seeing, so to speak.
Exactly. And then there's another powerful technique called attention mechanisms. These help us follow the AI's train of thought as it processes information.
Oh, so we can see which parts it's prioritizing.
Right, like imagine an AI reading customer reviews. Attention mechanisms could show us exactly which phrases the AI focused on the most to determine the overall sentiment.
So it's kind of like highlighting the key phrases in a textbook, the ones that are really important for understanding the concepts.
Precisely. And then there's representation analysis, which helps us understand the hidden structures and relationships the AI has learned from the data.
Whoa, okay, so we're like mapping out the AI's brain.
In a way, yeah. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
This is amazing. We're really getting a deep understanding of how AI thinks with these techniques, but I'm guessing it's still not always a walk in the park to interpret those deep learning models, right?
Oh, absolutely not. It's still a very active area of research. But with every new technique, we're getting closer to fully understanding these powerful systems.
That's really exciting. So we have all these amazing tools for peeking into the black box. But this brings up another question for me. Like, how do we even choose the right approach for explaining an AI's decision? Do we always need perfect explainability, even if the AI is super accurate?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll definitely dive into more in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into explainable AI. We just left off talking about all the cool tools and techniques that are helping us understand, the why behind AI's decisions.
Right. And as we keep exploring this world of XAI, there's this big challenge in AI that we really need to address: bias.
Yeah. For sure. We've all heard those stories, right? About AI systems showing bias, whether it's in like hiring or lending or even facial recognition.
Absolutely. It's a huge concern. And it makes you wonder, right? Like, how can XAI help us tackle that issue?
Well, yeah, because it seems like if we can understand why an AI makes a certain decision, we could potentially spot those biases, right?
Exactly.
What-
XAI can be like this bias detector almost, helping us pinpoint where those biases are coming from and how they're affecting the AI's decisions.
So instead of just seeing the biased outcome, we can like trace it back to the source.
Exactly. We can actually look at the data that was used to train the AI. Like, is it actually representative of the population it's meant to serve? Or is it reflecting, existing societal biases that could skew the AI's thinking?
Right. It's like if you try to teach someone how to cook using like spoiled ingredients, you can't really expect a delicious meal, right?
Perfect analogy. But XAI can go even deeper than just the data. It can also help us scrutinize the AI's actual decision-making process.
So we can actually check if the AI is like prioritizing certain factors unfairly.
Precisely. Like, imagine an AI system is reviewing job applications. XAI can help us understand if it's inadvertently favoring certain demographics based on things that shouldn't matter,
Yeah.
like gender or ethnicity.
Wow, that's huge. So we could potentially catch those biases before they lead to like actual unfair hiring decisions.
Exactly. XAI gives us this ability to audit the AI's thought process, making sure it's making decisions for the right reasons.
And that really all comes back to building trust in AI, doesn't it? Like if people feel like AI is making fair and unbiased decisions, they're more likely to accept it.
100%. Transparency is key to building that trust. And XAI gives us that transparency. It lets us hold AI accountable and make sure it's aligned with, our values as a society.
So in a way, XAI isn't just about understanding AI. It's about like shaping AI, making sure it reflects, our ethical principles.
That's a great way to put it. It's about making sure AI is used for good, to benefit everyone and, promote fairness and equality.
Okay, so it sounds like XAI is this really powerful tool for addressing bias in AI. But are there any limitations we should be aware of as we develop and use these techniques?
Oh, of course. No technology is perfect, and XAI is no exception. And one of the challenges we've already touched on is that explaining really complex AI models, especially those deep learning systems, can still be really difficult.
So even with XAI, we might not always have all the answers.
Right. And that brings up another challenge, which is the potential for misinterpretation. Even when we have explanations, they can be really technical, and there's always a risk that people might misunderstand them.
That's a good point. It's really important to make sure those XAI explanations are clear and easy to understand, even for people who aren't, like AI experts.
Absolutely. We need to make sure everyone can understand these explanations so they can make informed decisions.
Right. It's not just for the techies. Everyone should be able to understand this stuff.
For sure. And, we talked earlier about that need for balance between accuracy and explainability. And some people worry, right? Like, what if focusing so much on explainability with XAI actually makes AI systems less accurate?
Yeah, it's like, are we sacrificing accuracy for transparency?
That's a valid concern, and it's something researchers are definitely looking into. As we push for more transparency, it's possible we might have to, make some trade-offs.
So it's not a simple equation. It's about finding the right balance for each specific application.
Exactly. Like, sometimes a little decrease in accuracy might be okay if it means we gain a much deeper understanding of how the AI is making decisions, especially in those high-stakes areas where transparency and trust are super important.
Right, like we were talking about before with healthcare and finance, sometimes it's worth it to sacrifice a little bit of accuracy for peace of mind.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that XAI is still, a relatively young field. As research progresses, we're probably going to see even more sophisticated techniques that can give us both high accuracy and really meaningful explanations.
That's really encouraging. It sounds like there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the world of XAI. And speaking of exciting stuff, we were talking earlier about how XAI is already being used in all sorts of industries. Like, are there any real-world examples that really showcase, like, the impact it's having?
There are tons, and we're going to jump into some of those really cool examples in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back. We're wrapping up our deep dive on explainable AI or XAI, getting a look at how these AI systems actually think.
Right, and we left off talking about how XAI is actually making a difference in the real world, not just theory anymore.
Sure. Yeah, we touched on healthcare, finance, law, those big ones. but I'd love to hear some actual examples. Like, how is it really changing things in these fields?
Okay, so picture this. You're a doctor, right? And you're using AI to help you diagnose diseases from, say, medical images.
Okay, got it.
XAI can take that diagnosis and say, hey, here's why the AI thinks this. It can point out the areas of the image it looked at and how it interpreted those patterns.
So it's not just, hey, we think this is the diagnosis. It's like, here's our reasoning.
Exactly. It's almost like having another specialist giving their input. And that can be really reassuring for doctors, especially when we're dealing with tricky cases.
Right, because sometimes a diagnosis isn't always clear cut.
Exactly. It's more like, AI is helping, not replacing the doctor's expertise.
Makes sense. I like that. What else are we seeing in healthcare?
Well, XAI is also being used to personalize treatment plans, like figuring out the best treatment for each individual patient.
Ah, so it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach anymore?
Not at all. By understanding why the AI recommends a certain treatment, doctors can make sure it really fits the patient's needs and, their preferences too.
Yeah, that's huge. It's really tailoring the care to each person. And I know we talked about drug discovery too.
Oh, yeah. XAI is helping researchers analyze mountains of data to find new drug candidates, speeding up the whole process.
It sounds like it's really changing the game in healthcare. So
Yeah.
what about finance? Because we talked about those worries about bias in financial systems.
Right. Well, one big area where XAI is shining is in credit scoring and loan approvals. AI is being used more and more to decide who gets a loan, and XAI helps make sure those decisions are fair.
So instead of just getting a yes or no, borrowers can actually understand why.
Exactly. They can see what factors the AI considered and why it came to that decision. And that builds trust in the system.
It's about transparency again.
Transparency is key. And it's also super helpful for catching fraud and money laundering,
Oh, right. AI can be used to spot those suspicious transactions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But with XAI, investigators can actually understand why the AI flagged something.
Yeah.
Which makes it way easier to, stop those activities.
It's like the AI is not only a detective, but it can explain its deductions, right?
Uh-huh. I like that. And then, of course, there's the legal field. We mentioned how XAI is helping lawyers with, legal research.
Yeah, that AI assistant that can go through tons of documents and find the most relevant ones. Super cool.
Right. Well, with XAI, lawyers can see exactly why the AI picked certain documents, like what keywords or phrases made it choose those.
Ah, so it's not just saving time. It's actually giving the lawyers a deeper understanding of the case.
Exactly. And that understanding is crucial for, building a strong argument.
What strikes me is that XAI isn't just about making AI more transparent. It's about making it a better tool for people to use.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And the really exciting part is that it has this potential to create, a future where AI is really a force for good.
It's about using AI to make better choices, to solve big problems, and to make the world a better place overall.
That's the goal.
I think we covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from what XAI even is to the tools and techniques, real-world applications, and how it can address bias and all those issues. It's clear that XAI is going to be a huge part of the future of AI.
And it's been fantastic exploring all of it with you.
Thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Explainable AI. We hope you learned something new and are as excited as we are about the future of XAI.